is Dr. Amit Medeo. He is the director and the chairman of the Baldota Institute of Digestive Sciences, Global Hospital Mumbai, and he further acts as a consultant gastroenterologist to many other hospitals, including Breach Candy Hospital, Jack Lock Hospital, Prince Ali Khan Hospital in Mumbai, and he's no stranger to us. Therefore, I would like to invite Dr. Amit Medeo for his talk. This is on bariatrics. Hi.
Yeah, hi
Dr.
there.
Medeo.
Hi. Can you hear me well?
Very well. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So initially the topic given to me was bariatric surgery, way forward or backward. But bariatric surgery, as all of us know, is already an established modality. But what is new on the horizon is bariatric endoscopy. So I have modified or tweaked the topic a little bit, and I've kept it as bariatric endoscopy, way forward or backward. So let me share my slides and I will give you a little overview on this topic. So just to give you a little bit background, this problem of obesity is now tremendously on the rise everywhere in the world. And initially we felt that obesity was a problem of the Western population. But over the last couple of decades, we are seeing that bariatric problems, that is obesity problems, are extremely common even in the Asian population. And in the Asian population, including countries like India and the surrounding countries, and even, of course, in Sri Lanka, the problem of obesity is that it affects basically the population, and you have an increased or moderate risk of comorbidities even at a low BMI. So, for example, you have an increased risk of comorbidities even at a BMI of 23 to 25, and moderate risk from 25 to 30, and severe risk above the age of 30. Because what is happening is in Asians, the obesity is predominantly central obesity. And we see that they have mainly visceral obesity, where fat collects not only on the anterior abdominal wall, but around the viscera, even around the organs, sometimes in the liver. So fatty liver disease, NASH, these type of problems occur with a much lesser BMI in Asians as compared to the Western population. And that is the reason where time has come that we start thinking about some treatment of obesity in patients from Asia. If you were to see the various treatment modalities of obesity, the most simplest treatment is, of course, following a healthy lifestyle and a diet. And this has got minimum risk if you do this. But as we keep on introducing further modalities like medications or say even surgical procedures, we have to understand that the risk of everything starts increasing as compared to its efficacy. Even though the efficacy may be very good, after a good surgical procedure, we find that the risk can be a little bit high, and you may have unexpected complications like leakage or such type of issues which are post surgery. So therefore, if you were to see here, there are different types of surgery. There are many bariatric surgical centers which have flourished in Asian countries. In India, there are numerous bariatric surgical centers who are offering treatment for obese patients. And the main surgical procedures which are done nowadays is, of course, the commonest is the laparoscopic sleeve gastrectomy, where they remove part of the stomach and make the stomach into a tube so that the patient has early satiety, and that's how the patient loses weight. Of course, if the patient has severe obesity, what we call as morbid obesity, then a simple sleeve gastrectomy is not sufficient. So what is done is a mini gastric bypass, where they actually bypass the contents, and instead of going through the duodenum, the contents of the food, they directly enter into the small bowel, and thereby we actually cause a surgical malnourishment, because of which the patient reduces weight, and also it can correct problems of metabolic issues like type 1 diabetes or type 2 diabetes, and even the rectification of the HbA1c levels. Other procedures like duodenal switch, etc., are also there. But laparoscopic sleeve gastrectomy is the most common surgical procedure. Even after being practiced for so many years, the overall complication rate still hovers around 13%, overall morbidity around 30%, and reoperation rate of around 9%. And you see here, if you see the penetration of this type of procedure, that means if your obese patients come to your clinic and if you try to advise them undergo this surgical procedure, how many of these patients actually accept the surgical procedure is less than 1%. So number of obese patients continue to remain obese. They try to do exercise, lifestyle modifications, which is extremely difficult. So it was high time that there was the necessity of introduction of some procedure which is a middle of the road approach. And what is more important to know is how much amount of weight loss is required to reduce the complications or comorbidities associated with obesity. If you were to see here all the obesity related complications like diabetes, hypertension, dyslipidemia, or HbA1c increase, sleep apnea, etc., all that you require is around a 10% total body weight loss. And even if you achieve a 10% total body weight loss, there is almost a 90% reduction of all these comorbidities. So you see here, in most of these type of comorbidities, who only need a weight loss reduction of around 10%. And if you can achieve that, then most of the comorbidities associated with obesity can be reduced. And that is exactly the reason why over the past decade or so, bariatric endoscopic procedures, which are much more acceptable to the patient, which have virtually no complications, now are likely to be a middle of the road approach, which will be acceptable by many patients. And therefore, this will probably become the gold standard. Now, in bariatric endoscopy, there are various types of procedures which we can do, mainly either for weight reduction or even for the treatment of type 2 diabetes. First and foremost is for weight reduction. The most simplest procedure which we perform by bariatric endoscopy is a gastric restrictive procedure, which is called as endoscopic sleeve gastroplasty. And technically speaking, this is how the procedure is done. This is like a diagram at the cartoon, which shows that we go inside with an endoscope. This is how the stomach looks in this animated video. And then what we can do is, by using argon plasma coagulation, we can do marking on the anterior wall, on the posterior wall. And the main intention is, by using this suturing device, which is attached to the tip of the flexible endoscope, we can take full thickness sutures starting just proximal to the incisor angularis, and we can completely plicate the greater curvature of the stomach, starting distally and coming proximally by putting number of U-shaped or Z-shaped sutures like this. And this way, we can reduce the size of the stomach by plicating it by almost 50%. And this is the device which we use for that procedure of endoscopic sleeve gastroplasty. I just showed you yesterday in the live demonstration, but this is how the needle is transferred from one arm to the other on the needle holder. And then we grasp the wall of the stomach through this screw type of a device, pull the wall between the two arms, and then take a full thickness suture. And this is exactly the way we can do an endoscopic plication of the greater curvature of the stomach. Now, this procedure is relatively simple. Only a general anesthesia has to be given to the patient. We normally admit the patient for 1 day. And nowadays, in fact, we are even discharging the patient on the same day itself if the patient does not have too much of pain after the procedure. So the most accepted indication of an endoscopic sleeve gastroplasty is, of course, moderate obesity, that is class 1 and class 2 obesity. In the Asian population, we usually advocate this for a BMI of anywhere between 27, 28 to 35. And if the patient has associated comorbidities like NAFLD, joint pain, hypertension, dyslipidemia, sleep apnea, diabetes, of course, this procedure is extremely useful, because achieving a 10% total body weight loss with endoscopic sleeve gastroplasty is not difficult. Most of the patients can achieve that at the end of 3 to 6 months. And of course, this can also be used for those patients who undergone a laparoscopic sleeve gastrectomy and those in whom the stomach has again enlarged. In these patients, instead of subjecting them to a repeat surgery, we can do an endoscopic sleeve gastroplasty and shorten or reduce the size of the stomach again. Of course, there are certain absolute contraindications for doing endoscopic sleeve gastroplasty: is portal hypertension with gastropathy and coagulopathy if the patient is on antiplatelet agents, and relative contraindications are severe gastritis or if there is a high risk for general anesthesia. So now this is the equipment which we use for ESG procedure, which is classically called, is also called as an accordion procedure, because that is the way we plicate or pleat the greater curvature of the stomach. This is the suturing device. This is how the device is attached to the tip of the scope. We need a double channel endoscope for this. And this is how the endoscope looks. And this is the needle, which is attached to the tip of the needle holder. And just to show you, of course, I demonstrated it to you yesterday, but this is how we are going to now pass the needle, take it out from this arm, and then we transfer the needle on the needle holder on the other side. So now you see here, we are going to pass the needle out. We form the loop of this 2,0 Prolene thread. The needle is now transferred on this needle holder. And once the needle is transferred on the needle holder, the needle is taken back. And next thing to do is to pull the wall of the stomach between the two arms. So for this, we use this screw type of a device. So we pass the screw type of device just proximal to the incisura angularis. We are rotating the screw, and then we are pulling the wall in between the two arms. And then by pressing a handle, the needle goes through and through the stomach wall and transferred on the other side. Then the needle is grasped, brought on this side, and then again transferred on the needle holder. And then we take the second suture. So this way, one by one, we go along suturing the greater curvature of the stomach, starting on the anterior wall, go all along the greater curvature, then go on the posterior wall, and then take a U-turn, again go up, and then the final suture is taken up over here, where the needle is left. And then when we cinch it, not only the size of the stomach reduces, but even the length of the stomach reduces. You see here now that we are going to take the sutures one after the other. And this is how you can see that the stomach is getting plicated all along the greater curvature of the stomach. This is a full thickness suture. And as we keep on suturing, the stomach size keeps on reducing. And I'll go ahead a little bit in this video. So once you go, we have taken 3 or 4 such U-shaped sutures all along the greater curvature. If you were to see here, a nice tunnel forms, a nice tube forms on the entire stomach, almost as if the appearance is almost as if you have performed a laparoscopic sleeve gastrectomy. You see here, this is before, this is after the procedure, and nuclear studies, scintigraphy studies done afterwards, you can actually see that this is the stomach which is beforehand, but later on the stomach reduces after doing the lap sleeve gastrectomy. We intentionally leave the fundus behind, because what happens is in these patients, this fundus acts as a reservoir, and because this is a tube, we have a duodenal sphincter which is intact. The food comes here and get preferentially stored in the fundus distends, and then by negative feedback mechanism, the patient loses appetite. And for 6 or 7 hours at least, the patient does not feel hungry. And that is the reason the patient reduces eating the amount of food and reduces weight. Now, what are the advantages of this ESG procedure? This is a simple gastric restrictive procedure. And even though it is done a pleating of the stomach, it maintains the anatomic structure of the stomach, maintains the innervation, maintains the blood supply. It is potentially reversible. In case this patient can't tolerate it, we can just go in and cut the sutures. The whole stomach will open up. It is reproducible. Any endoscopist who has reasonable skills of performing endoscopic procedure can do this procedure. It is repeatable if required. That means if the stomach expands after a period of 8 months or maybe 1 year, you can go in and take a few more sutures, reduce the size of the stomach, and the weight loss continues. It is extremely safe. In most of the studies which have been published, there are no serious adverse events. It is much more durable than a balloon placement. And finally, if we feel that this patient is just not responding to a simple ESG procedure, it can always be upgraded with a surgical procedure where you can go ahead and do a bypass or a lap sleeve gastrectomy. You see here in February 2020, there was a very good systematic review and meta-analysis published on ESG procedure, 11 studies, more than 2,000 patients. You can see here, pooled average total body weight loss at 6 months was 15.3%, and at 12 months was 16%. So anywhere between 15 to 20% of total body weight loss occurs, and which is sufficient enough for the patient to have a complete reversal in their comorbidities. The second bariatric endoscopic procedure, which is mainly practiced in some centers in United States, especially in University of Washington, is a very, very simple procedure, which probably may not be acceptable to the Asian patients, which is a gastric content reducing procedure called as the Aspire Assist. Now, very, very funny, you see here, in this procedure, we actually perform an endoscopic gastrostomy or PEG. So percutaneous endoscopic gastrostomy is performed. And here the gastrostomy is performed where with a little wide bore. And then what we do is we keep this tube, which is coming out of the stomach through the anterior abdominal wall. And when the patient eats food, the patient has to be told to chew the food properly. And then after the patient's food is over, what the patient does is through this gastrostomy, they just empty out the stomach, 3/4 of the content of the stomach, and thereby you are reducing the amount of food that is entering the small bowel. Now, this aspire assist procedure gives the main advantage is the patient can eat anything they want. They don't have to do any dieting. The only thing they have to follow is that they have to just chew the food properly so that you can aspirate the food out through this content. And all the discomfort which can happen is there's this button which remains on the anterior abdominal wall. And many patients in the United States are accepting this procedure routinely. However, when we tried to explain this procedure to our patients in India, many of them were not agreeing with this procedure. However, the champion of this procedure is, of course, the University of Washington. You see here, Shelby Sullivan, who has written data on these patients where they have found that after doing the Aspire Assist procedure, they found a reasonable amount of weight loss because here the food just you don't allow to enter the small bowel. Whatever food goes in the stomach, you take out. Then coming to metabolic endoscopy, where nowadays endoscopists have also started treating patients of type 2 diabetes who have got abnormal HbA1c level. And we have to understand that one of the main reasons why these patients develop insulin resistance is because of an abnormal foregut lining. Because what has been found is in these patients, the enteroendocrine glands which are there in the foregut, they are abnormal. So therefore, they give a wrong signaling to the pancreas, and therefore the insulin is not produced. So what is done is we have now procedures by which we can bypass the foregut, by which we can actually bypass these abnormal enteroendocrine glands, and because of which the food directly enters the intestine, and a patient's insulin resistance improves and the patient's insulin sensitivity can be increased. One of the first techniques to be used is what is called as the endobarrier, where you have got such type of endobarrier sleeve, which is a silicone sleeve, and this gets fixed at the antrum of the stomach, and this part goes right inside the jejunum, so that the food goes preferentially through this endobarrier, through the stomach, directly inside the small bowel. You see here that this is how this procedure is done. This is, of course, the diagrammatic representation that after passing the scope, we go inside and then we can release the endobarrier here in the antrum of the stomach over a guide wire. And once this is done, then whatever patient food the patient eats goes through this endobarrier and it goes directly into the jejunum. Now, this appears to be quite a simple procedure for an endoscopist, almost as if they are placing a simple enteral stent, which we place for any malignant inoperable obstruction of the lumen. And therefore, many centers in the world started following this, and many studies were conducted. You see here, results after 1 year were very good. There were a robust continuous weight loss after doing this endobarrier procedure. However, in some of the studies, they found that because of the fixing mechanism at the antrum, it caused a little bit of a semi-perforation there, and these patients developed some liver abscess. So therefore, endobarrier was removed from the market. And now there are some companies in US who are modifying this endobarrier, which is now called as an endo sleeve. And now with a modified endobarrier, perhaps we will be able to do this procedure for changing the HbA1c levels. A very interesting procedure which has now come into the market, which is now not yet commercially launched, but now some experimental trials are already completed, is called as replacing the foregut mucosa. Now, in this procedure, which is called as the duodenal mucosal resurfacing, what we do is we actually, again, similarly, we go across the second part of the duodenum, and then we place a guide wire, and over that we place a special catheter at the tip of which there is a balloon which is attached, and then beyond the ampulla obvator till the duodenojejunal flexure, we ablate the mucosa of the foregut, of the jejunum. So the duodenal mucosa, which is beyond the ampulla obvator till the DJ flexure, is completely ablated by using some water which is passed inside that balloon, which is almost 90 degrees centigrade. and because of which the mucosa gets ablated. Now, this is how this procedure is performed. And you see here that what we do is, this is that catheter which can be passed over a guide wire. So first and foremost is to do an endoscopy, place a guide wire into the jejunum, and then this is the catheter. You can see this is the balloon, and on the side of that, you can see these two areas from where we can give an injection. So direct ablation is not done. First, we inject some normal saline into the submucosa of the duodenum, and then ablation is performed, so that the burn which takes place because of the hot water is not a full thickness burn. It is only a burn of the mucosa. And this way, the entire mucosa is ablated, starting from the DJ flexure, coming backward till the ampulla obvator. You see here, these are some endoscopic pictures of DMR, the results of the first human study, pre-procedure duodenum, expanded duodenum, ablated duodenum, 1 month follow-up, and 3-month follow-up. And from a single center study from Chile on 43 patients, they have found excellent results of the duodenal mucosal resurfacing. You can see here, this is the result. There is a very good improvement of the transaminase levels, and also a good reduction in the weight, as well as in the reduction in the HbA1c levels. This treatment, if it really comes into commercial use in a few years' time, it can become a game changer for those patients who have got type 2 diabetes. And instead of trying to just treat them with medical treatment, we can actually treat the cause, where we can ablate the abnormal enteroendocrine cells and allow new cells to come. Finally, friends, I just want to tell you that endoscopists have also now started doing procedures which are almost akin to surgery. All of us know that one of the procedures done for a metabolic problem, which is caused because of obesity, is a ileal jejuno-ileal bypass. This surgical procedure, which was end-to-end jejuno-ileal bypass, which was being done by surgeons, was a very strong procedure for metabolic surgery. However, it was given up because they used to do an end-to-end bypass. But nowadays, we have got some endoscopic magnets available, and by using these magnets, we can perform a side-to-side jejuno-ileal bypass by using endoscopic magnets. And by using these magnets, you can see how this magnet is getting released through the endoscope. And just to show you how this procedure is actually performed, this is what is done. We perform an upper GI-scopy first. I use an enteroscope going from up, and before that, we can do a enteroscopy done from the colon, and then we enter the terminal ileum. So one magnet is placed in the terminal ileum, one magnet is placed in the jejunum, and after releasing these hexagonal magnets, these magnets naturally come towards each other. And if there is any bowel in between these two loops, the bowel automatically separates out, and these two loops come into approximation. So one magnet is released in the jejunum like this, and the second magnet is released here in the ileum like this. And then once the magnets come together, because of the magnets coming close to each other, the wall of the intestine between the two magnets over a period of 1 week automatically necroses off, and you create a natural fistula, a natural communication between the jejunum and the ileum. And by this, what happens is that you can achieve a very strong bariatric endoscopic procedure. This is day 2, where necrosis is taking place, day 4, and somewhere around day 6, day 7, you achieve a good anastomosis. In fact, if you see here in this video, this is the picture which you can see here, how the magnet is getting released. And in fact, this is a laparoscopic view after the magnetic anastomosis has been done. You can see how the fusion has taken place. And even with the forceps, you're trying to separate it out. There's a very good fusion. And an endoscopic view here, you can see actually the anastomosis which has taken place through the magnet. And this is, of course, the barium, where you can see the barium which is passing from the jejunum going directly inside the ileum. So therefore, today, in the end of 2021 and 22, we have now come to a stage that bariatric endoscopy is now slowly maturing. And now for those subset of patients who get scared of surgery, but who really require some sort of help to reduce their weight, to prevent the chances of comorbidities, and to make their life more healthy, we can offer them these relatively non-invasive, non-surgical procedures where bariatric endoscopy. So I personally feel that bariatric endoscopy is not the way backward, but in the future, as we are going to go, as these techniques will evolve, as the technology will become even more user-friendly, I think this is definitely going to be a way forward. Thank you so much.